Ready. Snip. Hey.
I'm Ruth Gottschalk, and I'm from Columbus here, in Nebraska, that is. And I'm a member of the Platte County Historical Society here in Columbus, Nebraska. And the youngest member of the board. Most of them are quite elderly, have lots of historical knowledge to share. But they needed somebody younger with a little bit of legwork to be done.
What's the history behind this cabin that's been built here?
It was built by one of the founding fathers, Mr. Fred Gottschalk, back in the 1850s. And it is the cabin where the 6 town founders lived in. The 6 men that came over to settle this town and found the town lived together.
Were the settlers from the original Mormon Trail group that came across, some that stayed behind? Did they have any connection with that Mormon Trail?
They probably did. Now, I haven't done that much research on this yet myself. But there was a Mr. Galley, I believe, and he was a Mormon, because I believe it was his daughter, well, one of his children married Mr. Hudson's child, who were both Mormon families.
They say this is the oldest cabin that this was one of the original cabins that was in this group, is that right, in the settling here?
Right. It's the town site.
You say there was another one that was thought to be older but burned down recently?
Right. It was on display in our Pony Park, and it was burned by vandals some years ago.
Now, how did they relocate this cabin here?
Well, they moved the whole thing by using a house mover. We hired a house moving company that did it. And it held together beautifully, really, because it was so well preserved, as there were white siding boards put over it. And there actually was a lean-to on it on the east side that the settlers had added on not too long, we feel, after they built the cabin. And it preserved the log cabin and the mortar exceptionally well.
So though the cabin doesn't necessarily have much to do with the Mormon Trail, did they decide to have the dedication at this time for this particular purpose?
That's right. The Mormon Trail really lit a fire here of history. You know, people are just all of a sudden really willing to learn history. Before, it was kind of a boring thing to do. But now it seems like it's really revived the interest locally, and we just love it. And so we felt it was a prime opportunity to have a grand opening. Since we'd have thousands of people in town anyway, we hope for at least a couple dozen. And as you can see, we got far more than that.
How many did you have here today to this?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not a very good... I don't know. You'd probably have a better judge than I would.
Seemed close to 200
at
people.
At least, because they were in earlier in the old building, listening to the entertainment and looking at the artifacts in the original building.
What impact do you think this Mormon Trail then has on society here? I mean, you say it seems to have piqued the interest in a lot of people. Do many of the people have connections with those earlier ancestors that came across?
Oh, yes. And that's interesting because, I'm learning, I knew nothing when I started this 2 years ago, and I'm slowly absorbing a lot of the local history and, the families that descended from the founding fathers and so forth. Yes. And it really has, the school children have been doing projects in school and researching out all that information, and, it's just snowballs.
Does it have any personal symbolism to you?
Oh, I always just liked history. I was a real pioneer admirer from way back. I read all of Laurel Ingalls Wilder's books and loved it all. So I'm just kind of a wagon woman, I guess. Somebody told me I look like I fell off the wagon, so.
What about the trail? How important has the trail been locally to people that have settled in this area? As far as, is its influence still being reached today?
Is it what, did you say?
Is the influence of the trail still reaching?
Well, I would imagine, because some of them settled here, they didn't move on, Some of them ended up even coming back that didn't like it. They came back here. Of course, that was probably more the Oregon Trail, because they went to California, and came back. So that really would be more the Oregon Trail than the Mormon. But no, there's Mormon settlers here that stayed and, had families, and there's still descendants here today. than that.
Very good. Spell your name for me on camera. Your last name.
It's B as in boy, Richacek, Brick Gottschalk.